Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Dr. Jolene Brighten, leading expert in post-birth control syndrome. And today I'm joined by Tracey, who is going to be sharing her birth control journey with us. And thank you so much for joining me, Tracey. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so to begin this conversation, I would like to hear, when you started birth control and why you started birth control.
So I went on the pill when I was about 17 to prevent pregnancy, obviously when I was in high school. From then, I don't think that I had any issues. I was a teenager. I don't know. I got married at 23 and I came off the pill a couple years later, and I got pregnant shortly thereafter with my oldest daughter. No birth control after that. Not that I remember. And then got pregnant again with my second daughter. And when she was about 2, after probably a year of like some different simple birth control, just for the sake of preventing pregnancies, I had an IUD put in. So that was 10 years ago. Almost exactly 10 years ago, I had my first IUD put in.
And was that a Mirena IUD or?
It was,
Okay.
Yes, it was Mirena. It was everything the doctor had told me. It will prevent pregnancy almost 100%, no side effects, may or may not get a period, which I did not. After probably just a few months, I stopped having a period, and was just told, can keep it in up to 5 years with no issues. After 5 years is up, I can have it taken out. I can have another one put back in. I can make the decision then. So that started the post-children birth control, birth control that I used. So that was also when a lot of things started to decline with me. My girls were, like I said, on or about 2 and 3.5 at the time. And my husband is active duty Navy, so he travels a lot, especially at that time. And I just started to just not feel like myself. But I chalked it up to parenthood and life. And, I'm tired, I'm sluggish, I can't lose weight, I'm super irritable. And the biggest thing for me that I noticed was my sex drive. It was almost non-existent. And again, I thought it was just parenting. Have 2 small kids and a part-time husband in between travel. So I just kind of chalked it up to that.
Totally.
So,
how soon after having the IUD placed did you notice these symptoms, like the weight gain coming on and the loss of libido?
I don't know. It was a long time ago. I would probably say within a couple of months. I don't remember, but probably a few months.
Mm-hmm.
I stuck with it because it was easy. It was easy for myself. It was easy for my husband. It was a no-brainer for either one of us. I didn't have to worry about remembering to take a pill or, and at that point we weren't sure if we were going to have any more children. So we didn't want to do, anything any more extreme. And, so I, we just kind of went through the motions for those 5 years. In that time, we moved twice, and so there was that kind of stress. And then once my 5 years was kind of up, I guess I should backtrack. So there were a couple of years when we were really rough. I had found myself in a really, really dark place. I kind of, again, chalked it up to life and the ages of my kids. My husband was in a job at the time that he was really not happy with. So, him coming home unhappy, just kind of, that's kind of what I thought. But we found out we were getting ready to move again. And I started to feel like I was going crazy. I remember the first night it happened, I felt like I was having an asthma attack. I have never had asthma. I've never been diagnosed with asthma. And I remember just pacing around our bedroom one night, just waiting for myself to come. I was shaking. It was pretty uncontrollable. It felt a lot like anxiety. The problem was it continued every day for almost until we moved. So it went on for like 2 to 3 months of just this super anxious, really run down, really kind of awful feeling. And I didn't know what it was. So instantly I went to the doctor. I was put on an antidepressant. They chalked it up to stress and moving and that kind of thing. So I was put on an antidepressant and given Xanax for these anxiety attacks, as they thought that they were.
Which doesn't help with fatigue at all.
No, no. Come to find out, I believe now, knowing what I know now, was adrenals. I was super run down. I was super anxious about the move, but we had moved, multiple times. So right while that was happening, it was about 5 years. About 5 years from my first IUD were up. So I went to my GYN and I said, I want to keep things the way that they are. And we're not having any more children, but I like this IUD. It's simple. Let's have this one taken out and have another one put in. So that was about exactly 5 years ago today. I had my second IUD put in that day. One came out, the other one went right back in. The last 5 years have been interesting, to say the least. It's like I said, we moved again and settled back in. I started CrossFitting. I'd been working in a gym for a long time, spin, boot camp, that type of thing. So it's a little more low impact. We started CrossFitting, and within, I'm not sure how long, I started gaining weight again. I couldn't recover. My fatigue was really awful.
So very similar to the first IUD, second IUD, the same picture began, the gaining the weight, the fatigue.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Chalk it up to husband's deployed, kids are a little older, which means they're a little bit busier. They're in school age. So we have after school activities, that sort of thing. And so probably about, I'm not sure, probably 2 years ago now, things really started to come to a head. I just felt terrible all the time. I was tired all the time. I had no sex drive, none. Weight was coming on, not coming off, regardless of what I was doing. Sleep was super extreme. Either I was asleep all the time, slept through the night, could sleep 12 hours straight, or I didn't sleep at all. Wired, tired, kind of the works. And that's when I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's. So about 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I was 38. So I was super upset, but I was kind of happy that it was like, oh, okay, maybe this is it. Like, now I have a reason why I feel this way. My mother is hypothyroid. Kind of made sense. And, but then, the year and a half prior, this last year and a half was kind of the same thing, trying to figure out how to fix me. I tried everything. I tried supplements and, I saw a chiropractor and I'd had acupuncture and my adrenals, I had my cortisol tested and it was none throughout the day. So, still hadn't had a period. So at this point I'm, 8+ years IUD, not thinking anything, not really correlating the IUD with any of this. For a year and a half, just exhausting all measures and desperate, totally desperate. My doctors kept wanting to prescribe me more anxiety medication, or antidepressants, that type of thing, which I have not done since. I guess I should backtrack. I did take the antidepressants for about 2 years. And I remember thinking, I feel good, I feel happier, but these aren't relieving any of these symptoms that I'm physically feeling every day. My brain feels a little bit better, but it's, so
And
they
it was
kept up.
stacking on more to that low libido, like that.
Yes.
Mirena IUD meets antidepressants is like no hope for getting your libido back.
Right. So yeah, so they kept upping my dose of I was on Celexa. My best friend, her mother is actually a psychiatrist, and just kept telling me it's a good medication, it'll be okay, and it just, nothing went away. And none of the physical symptoms went away. So I went off of those a few years ago, and oddly enough, didn't really have any issues coming off of them, because I don't really think that was the underlying problem. So, so 2 years ago, diagnosed with Hashimoto's, and thought, great, well, here's my answer. The doctor immediately wanted to prescribe me medication, a synthetic medication. I took it for a short time and then did a little research on my own and decided to go with the more natural medication. So I take the Armour thyroid. Found out about my cortisol, which was super, super low, but still no period, still no sex drive, tired most days, wired the other days, sleep was super sporadic, and still zero sex drive, which was killing my marriage, basically. So about back in, I guess, September, I think it was this past September, I did a little research and I found a company I said, I need a nutrition coach. I've been in the fitness industry for a while, but I was like, maybe a coach still needs a coach. So I reached out.
Doctors.
Yes. So I reached out to this company. I found one of the coaches was diagnosed hypothyroid when she was very young, 17 or 18 herself. I hired her, and we almost immediately, through sleep and recovery and food, healed my adrenal issues. So that was really great.
Yeah, well done. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was finally, for the first time, listening to my body. You need to slow down. You need to eat more, because I wasn't eating enough. I was overtraining because I thought that was what I should do.
I've been there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's painful. It's so then back around, I guess, January, give or take, is when, because I was following her, and she does a lot with women's health, that kind of thing, and that's how I found your website and a couple of other ones, and really started to dive into the down and dirty of the hormones. And so I just, I think I healed myself the best that I could with changing my exercise style, my eating style. I went gluten-free 2 years ago when I found out about my Hashimoto's. But something still just wasn't right. I still just didn't, I was recovering from exercise, and that felt good, and my mood was a little better, and I lost a couple of pounds, but something was just not right. And again, still zero sex drive. So about 5 weeks ago, after doing a lot of digging and a lot of, I talked to my husband quite a bit about it, and I said, I need to have this IUD taken out. And I did within just, a couple of days. My doctor got me in, and within, it's probably 7 to 8 days, excuse me, I woke up one day and I said, I feel like a whole new person. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't pinpoint it at all. I just felt different, and in a good way. And that was just within days of having it taken out. And I've heard some of the horror stories, and I was kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop with the side effects or the symptoms, of hormones kind of rebalancing, I guess. But I haven't had any, and it's been 5 weeks, and my sex drive has gone through the roof, basically.
Woo!
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yes. So, and I feel lighter. I don't know. I don't have a lot of words to describe it. I've dropped probably 5 pounds in a month, and with very little effort, just kind of that extra bloat and discomfort, maybe. So my diet hasn't changed at all. Yeah. So my mood is better. I find myself just a little bit overall happier and not quite as irritable or impatient or all the things I kind of always chalked up to being, a wife and a mom, and, so.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So in a lot of ways
am.
for you, I mean, you had been putting so much energy and effort into your health, but that IUD was an unknown obstacle for you in a lot of ways. And so I think what's important to highlight about your story, because you said, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. And so women will say that, well, I don't want to get post-birth control syndrome. And how do I prevent that? Well, with the things that you were doing, dialing in the diet, getting really focused on that, making sure your exercise was appropriate for your needs of your body, but your hormonal needs as well. And you were doing so many things ahead of time that this is a situation where we don't expect there to be extreme post-birth control syndrome symptoms, because you were doing all of that work, but you weren't moving the needle with all of that work because you needed to have that IUD removed. And so this is, what you're saying. I hear this a lot from women, especially with the IUD. Birth control pill tends to take a little bit longer, but with the IUD, I've had patients say, like, within 3 days, they're like, it's like I was walking around with a veil and all of a sudden the veil lifted, or I woke up and I felt like, this is me. Like, wait a minute, where have I been all this time? And for you, that was like a decade of the IUD, right?
It was. And, over the last 5 years, my husband and I have had a lot of, issues, and so recently, that's what I have said to him. I said, I feel like myself. I don't know. And so I have a lot of guilt about things that I did or didn't do in the last, 5 or 10 years, or, but, I do. I feel like a whole new person. I feel like me. I feel like how I'm supposed to feel. Unfortunately, I do feel like there's been a little bit of damage done from the years of me just feeling so physically off, or
Yeah, no, and I've posted on this several times about how birth control can and does ruin relationships. And I've had women meet and fall in love with, the love of their life. They get on the pill, they get on the patch, they start using the ring. I mean, you name it. And the next thing that follows is that they're not in love with that person anymore, or they're super, super irritable. I've had women, with the IUD who are crying every day and thinking that, like, now their partner is the enemy, and feeling fearful and having anxiety and thinking that it's because I'm in this relationship, which, everybody chimes in on women's lives. And, that can be part of what's going on, is people are telling you, well, it's because you're a mom. It's because your husband travels all the time. It's because of this or that. And when in reality, it was like, you fell in love with this guy. You knew the deal. Like, you went into this, but you got an IUD. And that's something that we have to look at, and we have to acknowledge in all of that. And I really hope it's not true that too much damage has been done, but it's something I hope it brings some comfort to know that, like, there's a lot of women who report how birth control has really disrupted their relationships, and even their relationships with their children, not just with their husbands. Have you noticed anything in terms of, like, being a mom now, like post IUD?
Absolutely. And we're in the throes of middle school years here in our house with 2 girls. So, so things with them are, hormonal and, a little crazy for them. And I feel like I can handle it. I feel, whereas, even 3 months ago, it made me angry, or I was annoyed by it, or I just didn't have patience to deal with it, or I didn't care. And I don't mean I didn't care. I just didn't know how, or
Well, when I hear women say I didn't care, it's more of like, I didn't have the energy for that.
Yes.
Like I couldn't physically
Right.
invest in what was going on because
Right.
I was so depleted. I was a mom who developed Hashimoto's after the birth of my son. And I went a whole year with being dismissed and not being medicated. And I look back and I'm like, whoa, there were just times that I was like, I'm going to lay on the floor and you're going to do whatever you're going to do because I physically cannot be there for you in this moment.
Yes. I feel like I have brain capacity to handle all of the things that can and have and will come my way. Because physically I feel good. Physically I feel, significantly better, and my brain it feels clear. I feel like I can handle the stresses of parenting and that kind of thing. So yes, it's been life-changing having this taken out. I guess my only regret is I didn't do it sooner, and that that there hasn't ever been too much damage done in the years to not be able to repair them. It is something that I'm struggling with right now, currently. I physically feel fantastic. My libido is through the roof. I'm exercising well and eating well and sleeping well. But we have a lot of challenges that we've been facing over the years. And I do believe this is part of this, is a big reason why that we as a couple have struggled.
And the progestin, so when you're on the Mirena IUD, that's one of the highest dose of progestin, which is a synthetic progesterone. It's shown to alter the female brain. So it's shown that progestins do alter how our brain is actually functioning. And with the Hashimoto's piece, if you are having progestins instead of progesterone, you actually can't use your thyroid as well, the cellular receptor. So if your thyroid is already struggling, and then you're on hormonal birth control, which is shifting and changing hormones and your cells that you can't even use what you're making, it's just going to make that struggle so much harder. Now, I'm curious, you have 2 daughters now. This has been your experience. What are your thoughts now on they'll be coming to that birth control conversation, hopefully later than sooner. I'm a parent. So I was like, how can we not talk about that for a while?
Yes, exactly. Oh man, I am going to do my best to sway them in every other direction for as long as possible. I realize there's going to be a point in their lives that they're going to be adults and they're going to be able to make their own decisions, but I am going to use everything that I've learned in the last couple of years to hopefully guide them in the right direction, to be able to not have to deal with the severe hormonal imbalances and then rebalance and that sort of thing. I've become a huge fan of really hating birth control, I guess. And I get why people do it. I said I did it for years. I understand, it makes sense, but there are so many other options that are just as good, that without damaging, anything or anyone. So
yeah. Well, and knowing that, we know that hormonal birth control can be a trigger for autoimmune disease, and knowing they have a family history. Your mom has autoimmune disease. Who gets autoimmune disease? Women. Right. Who gets Hashimoto's? Women. And as women, we're 5 to 8 times more likely to develop an autoimmune thyroid condition. And so if you know all of that, then, that changes, that makes it so much more individualized in terms of what you recommend as birth control, because it's not just like, birth control was studied and meant for women who have no disease, who are healthy women. But if you have the potential to go there, that's a different story. And that's what I want to see doctors doing better when they counsel women about birth control options, is that if this is even possible, that it could trigger an autoimmune disease. And, thyroid is also one of those things that gets dismissed, where they're like, it's just thyroid disease. It's no big deal. Everybody's got it. But it's an autoimmune disease, which means that your own immune system is now attacking your body. And so that's a very significant disease. I mean, you and I, we're Hashi sisters. We both have this. So, it's not until you go through it do understand how debilitating it is, how much it robs your life. And then you had the Mirena IUD stacked on top of that, you know, disrupting the harmony of your hormones, but also the harmony of your home life as well. So it just adds a next layer into thinking about what's best for your daughter's health.
Yeah, yes, totally. I mean, I know there's, you know, a good chance one of my girls could end up with thyroid issue as well. I'm hoping, you know, through lifestyle and, you know, diet, exercise, you know, it'll be something they'll be able to get, you know, control and maybe not, you know, have to deal with, and medication and that sort of thing. That's actually my goal, is to come off of my thyroid medication. And I'm hoping, you know, it's a possibility in the next, I don't know how long, year maybe, but yeah. So, you know, just educating my kids and hoping that they, you know, can lead them in the right direction to make the best decision for them, and that there are lots of other options, and that, you know, food really is medicine, and, you know, it's really a lot can be repaired by just listening to your body and just taking good care of yourself.
Absolutely. Well said.
Yeah.
They're so lucky to have a mom like you, because I think we're seeing this generation of all of these women who have autoimmune disease, and it's growing rapidly. But what I'm also seeing is that moms are taking the reins, and they're like, well, I can do better for my child. Like I had no idea that, like, you know, all of the things I was doing to my teenage self could contribute to me developing a disease later in life. Like, I feel like I should have known, but I didn't know. But now I'm like, as I raise my son, I'm like, we can do things so much differently. Like I have so much more knowledge that I can pass down to you. And so I think in a lot of ways, you know, as heartbreaking as your journey is, it's also going to make you a better mother, and your daughters are going to be better for it.
I hope so. Like I said, I've over the last month, since I've really felt this physical change and this my brain clear up and this fog lifted, I have a lot of guilt. I have a lot of guilt about, you know, the last, not necessarily 10 full years, but because I think some of it is just parenting, and is just, you know, times of your lives that are just a little harder than others. But I have a lot of overall guilt about how I felt, how I didn't feel, how I acted or reacted or handled things or didn't handle things. And
well,
so,
being gentle with yourself is one of the best things you can do for inflammation. Your brain was hijacked by synthetic hormones, so keep that in mind. And also, you know, the mom guilt is real. And I go through it. I still am like, I had an autoimmune disease. I could not get out of bed, even with 15 hours of sleep. And I still feel guilty that it wasn't there enough for my son. And it's something that, like, I have to work with. I have to reframe. I have to remind myself, like, to be gentle, because it's not serving anyone for me to be hating on myself. And so I would just ask that you do a reframe with that, and realize that, like, had you been in this state now, you wouldn't have been that way, like that. And hindsight is always 2020. I mean, when I look at so many things, I'm like, please don't judge me for the things that I did decades ago. But, you know, it is really something that I just want you to know, because I talk to thousands of women, this very common for when they come off of hormonal birth control, like this mental emotional piece of, like, I was a monster. Like, who was I? Like, I wasn't even myself. I destroyed relationships. I mean, when I was on the birth control pill, I was like a rageaholic at times. Like, it just irrationally would fly off the handle. And then with post-birth control syndrome, I was just like, it was just at times I was just just monster. It was not fun at all for anyone in my life. And so you're definitely going to work through that guilt. Like, you're definitely going to have it bubble up, but just know that, like, that's somebody whose brain was hijacked by synthetic hormones. And had you known that, you probably would have never had that IUD placed in, you know, in the beginning. Like, you would have never started that. And unfortunately, within your journey, there was nobody else looking in saying, hey, have you ever thought about taking out that IUD and just seeing who you are?
Right. And in fact, I feel almost like the kind of the opposite. Being a military spouse, they encourage and push birth control because, you know, we have quote unquote free healthcare. And so, you know, and then of course you have these young kids getting married because they have these new careers and these new lives, and everybody starts having kids. And so the military and military facilities do encourage birth control. And when I had both of my girls in a naval hospital, and I mean, it was before I left the hospital, they were talking to me about what's my form of birth control going to be, and I have a 2-day-old baby. So,
yeah. How soon postpartum did you have that IUD placed?
So after my first one, after my oldest, because my girls are they're just less than 2 years apart. So after my oldest, I believe I did like the mini pill, I think they call it. Like
more progestin on the brain.
Yeah. That was after I was done nursing. So maybe that was like 6 months, and I probably only took it I think I was only on birth control for like 6 months, and then got pregnant shortly thereafter, had my second one, did the same thing. So some type of birth control while I was nursing. 6 weeks maybe. And then I think after that I moved to I did have the Nuva ring for a short time. Again, maybe 4 or 5 months, something like that, just to try it out. It was simple. It was fairly new at the time. This was back in 2006. So, and then I went right to the IUD. It was, okay, this is what I've heard about. My doctor said, fantastic. All my patients love it. Yeah. It's even better. You're not going to get a period. And I was like, oh, well, that's amazing, because who wants to deal with that?
Yeah, no, totally. I went through the same thing. I was like, I don't need a period for like a good 2 years. But
yeah,
why I asked that is it's interesting to me because so when we start our period, that's not a good time to start birth control, because that's just when our brain and ovaries are beginning to talk. Postpartum is much of the same. I mean, for 10 months, you weren't having a period. And so that rhythm and flow wasn't happening. And so when, after we have a baby, that has to come back online. Like the whole system has to shift to the new way of being. I mean, it's what it was before, but it was blocked. It was blocked with hormonal birth control. And so that is, the other thing that's interesting, I'd love to see more research about this, is that our brain actually shrinks starting in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy, and it doesn't come back until about 6 months postpartum. So if in that time, your brain has shrunk because it's helping you get hyper-focused on raising a human, it's a good thing. But now you introduce a medication that alters brain function, brain chemistry, brain activity. What is that actually doing to our mothers? And it, does that, and not to freak you out, I just wonder, does it have a long-term impact? But also, how much harder does it make motherhood when you're not bathing your brain? So if you were bathing your brain in natural progesterone, you would feel chilled out and calm. And I'm imagining that's what's happening for you now, is that you're like, I'm getting progesterone, I'm calm. Yeah. I mean, when we have our hormones in balance, we're so in love with our life. Now, we still don't take any BS, but we're so in love with our life, and we're a lot more patient with the people that we love in our life. But when you're on these synthetic hormones, it's a disruption. It's chaos in the brain. And to be, and I feel like every time you have a baby, that's like a new mom experience again, because they're so different. I mean, I have patients that are on, and I have patients who are on like kid number 8. And I have one, I don't know if these are women, but they're like, everyone is a new challenge in some way. Sure, like I've done it before, but they're so different, and their needs are different. Their personalities are different. And so it's a lot like stepping right back into new motherhood in a lot of ways.
Yes. Something I actually haven't thought about really until right this second. I struggled quite a bit after my second was born, and a lot of postpartum, a lot of baby blues. I think she was probably a month old, maybe, when I went to my doctor, and first thing he did was he handed me a prescription for Prozac. I didn't ever have it filled, but I did feel like a complete failure. And now that I think about it, I think I probably started taking that birth control right around that same time. Again, it was a long time ago. So, but
compounded with the fact that that's probably when you developed Hashimoto's. So 1 in 12 women worldwide that give birth develop postpartum thyroiditis, which is a form of Hashimoto's. And it can go into remission with pregnancy number one, once you reach the year mark, and then come back postpartum pregnancy number two. And so that's another piece of your story that I've been really curious about, is like, I wonder if you actually were starting to struggle with postpartum thyroiditis. That definitely, the way it presents is definitely with a low mood. So you can have anxiety or depression. And that's something that new moms are just told, oh, it's because you're a new mom. It's because you had a baby. It's because you're not sleeping. And here's some drugs to mask that. And the problem with these drugs that, these mood altering drugs, is that they have a negative impact on the thyroid. So it just compounds like what's going on. And then throw the birth control pill into the mix, or the IUD. And it's like, your doctors just set you up. So it was set up in some ways.
Yeah.
And had they known, I'm sure they wouldn't have done that. Like, had they known, I am certain they wouldn't have done that.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, being a military spouse, based where we were at the time, every time I'd make an appointment, sometimes it was with somebody different. So all this doctor is doing is reading my chart from the time before. So maybe doesn't really know me, and there's no history. And I just need an appointment, and they just send me to whomever, and so, it's been quite an interesting journey. I've learned a lot. Like I said, I have a lot of regrets. I wish I'd done a lot of things differently. But it's been just about 5 weeks exactly. I still have not had a period. And I realized I haven't had a normal period. My oldest will be 14 this summer. So we haven't had a normal period since before she was born. It was, birth control, period, pregnancy, nursing, maybe a period or two, pregnancy, nursing, IUD. So.
Yeah. And, with the IUD and having that long, when the IUD shuts down a period, I see that it can take a good 3 to 6 months, like with the things that you're doing now to get your period back. But of course, if you miss a cycle, it's always a good idea to start getting lab testing and start looking at why, sooner than later, because it's one of those things that, doctors will say, oh, we'll give it 6 months. And then we've got something more serious brewing and going on. But you're doing a lot of the things that women need that really are foundational to start getting things back into sync and back into place. And so, 5 weeks and just having the IUD out, it might take another 5 weeks to see your period come back. And I've had women that after 10 years of no period, and that is they were on the birth control for 10 years, didn't have a real period, stop it, and then 10 years later still no period. I've seen those periods come back. Those are more the outliers, but it is something that's just worth saying. Like, it is possible to recover your period.
Yeah, I hope so. Like I said, I mean, physically, I feel fantastic. I feel the best that I have felt in years, and I did. I just woke up, about a week later and thought, wow, I feel amazing. This is how I think I'm supposed to feel and have, and should have been feeling over the last 10 years. And I didn't. And I probably, like millions of other women, chalk it up to just parenthood and life and, change. And it's unfortunate. I think that we need to be better educated. I think our doctors need to be better educated. And
absolutely. Well, that's what I'm on a mission to do.
And you're doing great. That's how I found it. And that's how I've, started this journey for myself. And, no complaints right now. So.
Awesome. So for women who are, on hormonal birth control, they are suspecting it might be leading to their symptoms, or they're feeling fearful coming off. Is there anything you would share with them?
Yeah, I mean, I would just tell them to do a little research, do some digging, be proactive, talk to not only, doctors but other female friends, find out their experiences, or, there's so much information out there. The internet is a pretty incredible thing for the most part.
Oh, totally. I wish I had it when I started my period.
Yeah. But yeah, I would just say, just be proactive and don't rule anything out, and don't sweep it under the rug. If you don't feel right, then exhaust all measures to figure out what it is, because like nobody knows our bodies better than us. And, I'm one of the many that has just ignored a lot of things. And I wish I hadn't. So, just keep working at it to try and figure out what it is. The answer's it's going to be there somewhere, and somebody will be able to help you along the way.
I love that. And that's why, we're doing this video. I'm talking to so many women and interviewing them, because so often women are dismissed and they're believing what their doctor's saying. And they're thinking, okay, I'm crazy. And it's when they hear another woman's story, that's when they're like, wait a minute. If it happened to you, then what I'm experiencing, that could be very real. And they'll come into my medical practice and they'll say, I never thought anything of it until I was talking to my girlfriend and she said it happened to her too. Yeah. And that's when I was like, I knew it. I knew there was something going on.
Yeah, I actually have a girlfriend, a close girlfriend of mine that has been on birth control for, I don't know, a couple of years. And she just went off of it a few months ago because they're trying to have another baby. And that's why she went off of it. And this was a few months ago. And she kind of the same thing she said to me. And because I didn't know, but then she told me, she's like, oh, I went off the pill about 2 weeks ago. She's like, I feel incredible. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, wow. Well, I've been reading all of this stuff recently and, seeing all of these posts and that kind of thing. And I was like, this is a thing. So.
Yeah, no, it is very much a thing. And I am so excited to see how many women are talking about it. In my opinion, not enough people are talking about it. And like for a long time, for years, I was out there talking about it. And now I'm seeing like it pop up all over my social media. And I'm like, yes, finally, like the conversation is rolling. And I'm not the only one out there being like, you guys, this is a thing. Like women are catching on. They're waking up.
I think the first time I heard you speak was on the Balance Bites podcast. But for one of the first times you were on there. So maybe like, I don't know, a year and a half ago or something. And that was, I still didn't do anything right after that, but that was what really got my wheels turning, that, hormones are, they have to be taken care of. And, so for me, I was focusing on, okay, I'm going to do before I went with the IUD, having the IUD taken out. But so before that, it was like, okay, I'm going to do everything I can. That was just not necessarily the last straw, but that was like, okay, I think I'm headed in the right direction, but there's just a little bit more that has to happen. And that was it. But yeah, that was when I really first started to dive deep into it, when I had all of my like severe adrenal issues and the Hashimoto's diagnosis. And
yeah. I mean, clinically, what I see so often is women will do all the right things. They get about 70 to 80% better, but they can't really get that last 20%. And then once they stop their hormonal birth control, they're like 110% better. Like they exceed what we thought was possible.
Yeah. My nutrition coach that I work with, and I know she's a big fan of yours as well, but that was probably, that was Lori King.
She's always shouting out to me on
yes. Yeah. So I've been with her since like September, and it was a few months ago. She was like, she said, I'm not going to tell you what to do. Like this is all for you. And she said, you're feeling fantastic and you're doing really great and you're recovering. She was like, but I think it's that IUD. And so that was, it was the push, and, and I thought, hey, worst case scenario, if it's not, then it's not, or,
and that's really the thing, is that you have to understand what's true for you. And in a way, we all have to be like biohackers and scientists with our own body, of testing things and understanding how things work for us.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to speak.
Yes, of course.
I have a book that's going to be coming out. And so
fantastic.
Well, thank you. I know the first thing that is going to be said is that, Dr. Brighten's making this up, or like, she's just one doctor saying this. And I think we need more women sharing and telling their stories. And it's something that, when critics say like, this is all in, Dr. Brighten's head or this woman's head, I would love to have, these videos that are out there showing that, like, no, actually it's not in any one of our heads. We are united in our stories, in our experience, and that we are telling the truth.
Definitely. Like I've actually super emotional about it, because the last month, I have felt so good that, like I said before, I have so much guilt about previous years, but I feel I'm just very passionate about it because of my own personal story and how good I feel. And, I cry almost every day because I feel so good now. And I wish that I'd had over the last, X years. So.
Yeah, well, you are on the journey now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just want to congratulate you where you're
Thank
at
you.
and for taking these steps. You're such an inspiration. I know this story is going to inspire so many women. And there are so many moms that are going to, really resonate with this. I mean, like I said, the mom guilt is real. We all feel it. We all have it. And we all wish we could do better in so many ways. I mean, my son is 5.5 and I'm still looking back and being like, oh gosh, when he was 3, I should have done this. When this, I should have done this. And it's like, well, let's do the best we can starting today.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, thank you so much again. And
thank you.
I will definitely see you on Instagram. If women, your story, I think there's going to be women who want to follow and connect with you. Where could they find you? Like if you're up for that.
I don't get on Facebook much, but I'm on Instagram. It's at tdurbs, DURBS77.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.